Yo, what is up? It is Nick here, and this is my channel, Living Rich. And today, I'm going to show you how to live rich by getting out of debt. Because how are you going to live rich if you just keep owing people money? At least, unless you're making a lot more money than you owe the people, you're always going to be in a state of perpetual hell. Let's just go with that one. Just keep it simple. Anyways. So, a young man a few years ago had a lot of interesting ideas about the world and decided to do a lot of drugs, mainly mushrooms, one day. And he ended up busting his mouth, getting the ambulance called, and going to the hospital for an overnight stay and incurring a whole bunch of debt. Or not a whole bunch, maybe like, 3 or 4 grand worth of debt. On top of that debt, there was also, some random credit card stuff that he hadn't paid off yet. And so he found himself in this situation where he was working just to pay off this debt from these past experiences. And he saw his life kind of shaping up into this very structured thing in a structured way that he didn't like it to be. Anyways, he decided one day just to say fuck it and to move to Europe and to forget about all his debt, just stop paying it and ignore it for the 7 years statute of limitations that it took for it to be erased off his record. And now I'm going to tell you or share with you the pros and the cons of this way of destroying debt with the dark side. Dun, dun, dun. First of all, I'll explain what I mean by with the dark side. So this isn't really a cool way to live your life. Going about it, like, no judgments aside, but not paying stuff you agreed to pay is not an upright, moral compass way to live your life. It's not going to get you further in life. It's going to take you back. It's going to delay your goals. It's going to give you a lot of anxieties, and keep you from doing a lot of stuff that you probably should have been doing back before. All that aside, it is still a tool to erase the debt, to erase it off your record. And it has its consequences. It has its upsides and its downsides, but the net effect is basically to erase it off of your credit and your record, and by the end of the time, you'll be able to, go back and start living your life, so to say, in a relatively regular manner. So starting from the beginning, the cheating way of erasing debt with the dark side is by just not paying it off at all. One, so like from the moment you stop making payments to 7 years later is when the debt in California is expunged from your record. Now, different states have different laws. Some are a little bit shorter. I think one of the middle states like Missouri or something's like 3 years. Maybe some states are longer and have harsher penalties. You'll have to look at the laws in your various countries. Counties, states, whatever. Just know what's applicable to you. and understand that it's going to take that set amount of time to get it off. And then maybe some. So the first step is doing that. The second step is you're basically going to have to burn your phone. You're going to have to get a new number, get a new email address, get a new address. You're going to have to take your car and get it put in someone else's name, or just get rid of it and ride a bicycle. I think basically the best thing to do, just move out of the country for 7 years and then come back fresh after that's done. And then, you'll still have some residual people calling you. You'll have, people trying to get you to settle for maybe a little bit lesser amount than the original amount was, just to get some cash. And then, once that 7 years up, you'll be able to do it. But in the meantime, you're going to have concerns about your bank accounts, whether they'll get a lien put on it by a court order. Any taxes that you get returned to you from your state could be taken back. For example, in this specific example that I'm talking about, the gentleman had his California state tax return just absorbed every year. It wasn't that much, but it was enough, just to be annoying. It was maybe like a few $100s a year. Something you can do to counteract that is you can make it on your taxes so that you are underpaying for that year's tax, and you're going to owe at the end of the year tax to California, and then that's kind of how you'll get around the tax being taken, the tax being garnished from your tax return. Something else that could happen is that you can get your wages garnished. That's never fun. If you have a court-ordered 30% wage garnish, it's not going to be interesting. Although this gentleman never had it happen to him, his debts were not that high. They were just high enough to be obnoxious, annoying, and as a young man, he didn't want to pay them off or take the time to do that. Although, looking back, that might have been a more prudent decision in his case. So, this is almost like a form of bankruptcy, but without declaring anything and going through the paperwork and the processes. Basically, all it is just letting the statute of limitations expire on the debts. And then over time, just letting it wipe off the memory of everyone it affected, hopefully. So, why am I telling you this? I'm sharing this with you because of a friend of mine who is in a really, downward spiral in his life, where he has a whole bunch of debt. He has a kid across the country that he's not even, paying child support on, but he feels bad about it. But at the same time, he doesn't want to make any more money because he'll have to pay. And he's just in this hole. And the debt is probably a big thing on it. A big thing weighing on his conscience. And in order to kind of step out of this downward spiral, drastic moves have to be taken. In the first example I gave, where the young gentleman just dropped everything and left to Europe, that was his way of breaking the spiral while at the same time going and seeing the world, doing different things, and expanding his life experience. Funny enough, when that young man went to Europe, it was actually catalyzed by being in such a bad situation. So something you can take from that is that there could be a great motivation in the biggest angst in your life. And you could use that for a very positive experience like that young guy did. And basically, yeah. I mean, it's not pretty. It's not honorable. It's not conducive to, you know, owning a car, because they could come and take that. It's not conducive to owning a business or, you know, being a responsible member of society. But it is conducive to being a traveling vagabond and jumping around the world and, you know, just saying fuck it to everything, which in some cases can be really fun. And in some cases a lot more positive than staying at home and in the same pit with the same bad influences, unable to get out of a downward spiral. So, whether this helps you or not really depends on your situation, and it's not something to be taken lightly. A lot of times, through discipline and through, you know, a little bit of intelligence, managing your finances and yourself and getting a better job, maybe making more money, you can pay debts off pretty quickly. And that would be less time than the 7-year window that it would take, plus all the bullshit you would have to deal with going through just, you know, ignoring calls from creditors, you know, maybe registering your car in someone else's name so you don't have to worry about it being taken. Oh my gosh, it's just like so, it's a lot of bullshit. A lot of bullshit. So, anyways, I had a big idea for this video. It's actually come out kind of like mushy-mashy and not so clear. And I think that's because I'm trying to hide that I'm that guy in the first example where I left for Europe and I just said fuck everything. Fuck. I'm not going to put this video out. Okay, so I found what I was trying to say. It took me a second. I had to rewatch the video, sit and think about where I was going with this, and kind of like the underlying positive vibe of it. And it really comes back down to the situation that you're in. And if you're in that downward spiral and you can't get out, then I do believe something like this is going to be more positive for you than just being in a depressed hole where you can't get out of. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it really depends on where you're at. So, back down to practicals. I would really look at your debt and then use your own personal judgment, because once you do this, stuff is out of your control. Like once it goes into collections, it's almost like the regulations and the rules on how much money you owe can get out of proportion. So if you do this halfway and you start paying it again part of the way, or they convince you to agree that you still owe money, then you're going to be in trouble. And because then your debt will restart and all that interest will still be applied to it, plus any other fees and imaginable things that they could put on it, and it's almost endless. Okay? So you either got to do this all the way or not at all. There's no in between here. Once you start, do not go back. Remember that. Once you choose to stop paying and it goes into collections, do not pay it, because it will be an endless bullshit grind of creditors that have been sold your debt in order to go after you and collect whatever they can. What happens is the credit companies take your debt, they sell it to another company, a collections company, on pennies on the dollar, and these people are relentless. Depending on the state, there are different laws of what they are and are not able to do, and I have heard some horror stories online reading about it. So remember, if you choose to go down this way, if your situation is so tough right now that there's literally no light at the end of the tunnel, and all you can do is to just say fuck it, move, hide for 7 years, and go do something else, and if that would be more positive to your life than staying there and grinding it out like a fucking man, then remember, there's no going back. There's no halfway. Because halfway will fuck you. Halfway, you're going to get your ass kicked. So, it's either all being responsible and paying it off, or all going away and not paying it at all. And here's another key thing. And I'm actually just going to get in how to do it. So, 1, you don't make any payments at all. 2, when they call you, either don't answer, or if you do talk to them and you realize that it is someone calling about the creditors, you can just hang up, but you can't acknowledge any amount of debt. You can't acknowledge that you owe it, because I think that will incite, I'm not quite sure on the laws, but I think that has some sort of legal influence over you. So you just have to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about, and just hang up. And yeah, like they're gonna try to make you pay a little bit, like they're gonna try to give you discounts and stuff on the rate, like after a certain amount of time, you're like, oh, just like limited time, just pay $1,000 and it'll all be gone. But once you make a payment, it just opens up a whole nother, realm of bullshit for you. So you either pay it all off like a responsible human being, or you don't pay it at all. And the consequences of doing this, might be positive for you. So like in the case of my friend who has the kid across the country and who is in this like depressed hole and just like doing drugs, just like pop out of it every once in a while, I would suggest this for him. Like, I know him as a person. I suggest that he just goes and fucks off and goes and does something else. Like, he's not making any money where he's at. He's like working, 3 days a week at a restaurant or something, and he's not saving anything, and he's not making anything, and he doesn't even want to, and he's just in like a situation where he's just, it's just negative. And then in that case, not paying stuff off, while it's not a super positive choice, it's more positive than where he's at. And then back to my case, back when I was 21, it probably would have been more responsible for me to just pay it off. It was maybe like $6 or $7 grand total. That's fucking ridiculous. You can make that in a year and be done with it. But I let it go to collections. I let it, just run into bullshit. And, it was something that, and it wasn't even like, and here's the thing, the debt was a medical debt from an ambulance ride and a night in a hospital with no other treatment. And so I think morally, I looked at it and I was like, this is way fucking overpriced. I don't want to pay this. Because the service that they provided for me was they picked me up in an ambulance. And I laid in a bed in a hallway in a hospital without any care or treatment needed, really. I was just tripping on mushrooms way too fucking hard. And my rationale at the time was just like, it's $5,000 for a fucking hospital night is just fucking ridiculous. So, all that aside, the moral implications aside of me not paying, it bothered me for a while. And it's not settling. But I think where my strengths are is that I was okay with trying something new and different, and I knew a trip to Europe would uniquely shape my personality, get me away from any influences that were in my immediate surroundings, and force me to be more self-sufficient and resilient as a human being. And I think that foresight right there was my strength, and I used this tool. And it's kind of, it's funny now, like I'm sitting there and thinking about this, and I haven't thought about this in a long, long time. Like I've kind of just like did it, put it aside. I understood the consequences. I understood what I had to do. And my brain is good like that. Like I can feel something or get to know something, understand it, and just put it away and be okay with it. Like where I don't have to like keep thinking about it. But now it's almost coming full circle. The statute of limitations are all up. My if you can see in my smile here, I have a fake tooth right there and right there, and those were both from that little mushroom trip. It was a rough one. Actually, I don't even want to talk about it. But it was just a very intense experience in a lot of ways. And now that I'm coming full circle, on Wednesday I'm going to go to the dentist and get 2 new veneers, so my 2 front teeth match, and that's bothered me a lot for a while. In fact, it looks actually more contrasted in the videos than it does in real life because of the camera pixelations and lighting. Like I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll be like, oh, it's not that bad. And then I'll look at myself in the videos and I'm like, oh my God, my teeth. And it'll bug the fuck out of me. But all that aside, that's just like little personal, appearance, looks, whatever, all that shit. Everybody has their own thing that they're bugged about. And you gotta learn to let it go and just be okay with yourself and love yourself for who you are. So, anyways, I'm going to the dentist on Wednesday, and this is all coming full circle. So I thought I'd put a video out about this and share with you guys. And if you got this far, thank you for allowing me to kind of work through this and talk to you about it like this and share my experience. And if you want to recap on how to actually do it, 1, the statute of limitations starts from the last time you stop paying. The last payment you have is when the statute begins till 7 years later in California. Like I said, different states have different laws. Just research it on Google or whatever. You can't acknowledge to any of your creditors that you have the debt. I wouldn't even answer any phone calls. I'd change your number. I would change your Facebook name too. They'll try to contact you through a myriad of different ways. Maybe even going to your work. Your car is a big liability for you if you're going through this. So one, don't pay. If you choose to go down this route, you do it by not paying. One. Two, change all of your contact information from your address to your Facebook to your phone to your email. And then three, you gotta look at the assets that you have under your name, and you either have to put them under a family member that you trust's name, or get rid of them. Like, I don't have a car. I haven't had a car for 10 years now. And this is probably a huge reason why, is because I think a lot of times when you make a decision, there's a lot of different reasons why the decision is made. And this is one of the bigger reasons, that it just worked out to where this would be easier if I didn't have a car. And so, like, I just rode a bike everywhere. And it worked out a lot for like health and the environment and everything else, but also for this. So anyways, that was my video of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. I definitely don't recommend this if you don't need to do it. Everyone's situation is different, and you really have to get some self-awareness and understand where you're at. And if this is better than, if this sort of negative course of action is still more positive than where you're at, then in that case, maybe it's for you. Or no, if this negative course of action is more positive than the amount of time and dedication it would take to pay it off responsibly like a good human being, then yeah. But not everybody's in the same situation, and I just want to help. So if you have any questions or comments, post below. I'll direct message you, or you can direct message me. I think you can do that on here. If not, just comment and we'll find a way to talk privately if you'd like. But yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for watching again, and have a good day. Have a rich life. I'll catch you later. Peace.